Hi, I'm Andy. I'm the membership manager with What We Do Now. What We Do Now is a creative placemaking network in Dumfries and Galloway. Now, we're delighted to welcome here today Ted Leeming. He's one of the early members of What We Do Now. Ted, welcome. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Great to have you here.
So I'm an environmental photographer based here in Dumfries and Galloway. In a parallel life, I've been a climate activist since the late 80s. I then got very involved in the renewables industry in its fledgling days before there was any wind farms or solar farms in the UK. And then went back to photography in 2004, very much focusing on landscapes and outdoor work.
Yeah.
And over time, that's morphed into very much more environmental projects. And now it's entirely focused around issues around climate change and biodiversity crises.
The project you're currently working on, Landscapes of Tomorrow, it explores land use, both commercial and community focused, and how we might use and manage land to tackle the climate and biodiversity crisis. Can you tell us a bit more about this project and how it started for you?
What I've done is taken the regional land use database for Scotland, and within each of those different land uses, identify case studies. I cycle between those case studies, exploring and immersing myself in the landscape, primarily using my drone for photography purposes. It came about as a result of a residency called The Artful Migration, which was looking at nightjars on the Loch of Mosses, which is a bog just to the east of Dumfries. And as I explored the habitat, it became very apparent that less than 3% of that remains untouched today, and the rest of that land use is now agriculture or plantation forestry or expansion of Dumfries itself. And that raised a very interesting alarm in my head as to generational change in land use, and it's really gone from there.
What would you say your role as an artist or a creative is in this work?
When you see the consultations on land reform, on agriculture, on the forestry bills that have come out on placemaking in the last few years, it's always been about turn up to the village hall at 7 p.m, we'll all stick some post-its on a whiteboard, and then the experts will disappear off for 3 months and then come back and tell us what they think we want. I think we've got to get away from that, and I think the creative sector has a very significant role working with science, academia, environmental organisations and community entities in a collaborative way to change the way we think and approach some of these existential issues. The more people that we can get engaged in identifying different approaches to engaging people is what we really need right now. And I think doing it through a creative placemaking approach where the local community is leading and the creatives and other parties are supporting them is the key to a grassroots approach.
Are there ways in which you see What We Do Now being useful within this work, possibly, maybe in terms of connections, sharing learning, support, and so on?
I think it could be hugely useful to help me develop a toolkit, just from a very simple perspective, running a series of workshops in communities where they're challenging the toolkit so we can create something that is then available as an open source guide to anybody who's exploring land use issues. So from a starting point, that would be extremely useful. The more knowledge I can get from the wisdoms of local people, the better I can give something back.
Amazing. Thanks so much for coming in. It's been really interesting. I look forward to catching up as it progresses and also in a few months or few years when it's actually complete.
Well, it's a pleasure, and likewise hope everything you're doing really blossoms and flourishes.
Thanks, Ted.
As it deserves.
Thanks
Cheers.
so much.